To really explain everything, I'd need to go back at least 6 months, to that day last April when I got the call from Callie's school. But there'd also be stuff I'd want to leave out, particular things I wouldn't like to tell. For instance, the silly little daydream I was having before the principal called. My fantasies weren't particularly racy. No torrid scenes involving latex and drills. In fact, they were altogether chaste, with scarcely a kiss exchanged. What they were was retro, boring and anti-feminist. I'd lean over to clean a patient's teeth and imagine his proposition. I called them gateway men in my head, choosing the ones who looked skinny and anemic, men who lived alone in 5-bedroom houses and worked all hours at their city jobs. He would be fed up with microwave dinners and greasy, overpriced Chinese takeout. What he really, secretly desired was a good, home-cooked meal. In my mind, it would start accidentally, our eyes connecting above my surgical mask, our arms brushing together as I tore off some floss. Then, electricity. Kazow! Like we'd always been waiting for this moment, and here was my door, my gateway to a whole new life. My heart would pound as he leaned forward, and right then he'd ask me, did I know anybody who could be his live-in chef? At that point in my life, I was teaching myself to cook. My goal was to master one new technique each month in our small rental kitchen. I wouldn't have had the time to do this, but luckily I suffered from insomnia, so most nights I'd find myself drowsily lining up ingredients and preheating the oven. There, I destroyed pie crusts and pastries, deflated umpteen soufflés, repeating the steps over and over, reaching for eggs and more butter. But I loved it. I loved the moment when my body and mind were completely absorbed, when I forgot about who I was and just focused on the mixture. Fingers sensitive to the texture of dough, eyes attuned to the sheen of egg white, hand stirring automatically as the bubbles began to inflate. My anxieties disappeared when I concentrated fully, as if each uncontrollable variable could be mastered with enough attention. When my dishes finally came out perfectly, like the photos in my cookbook, it was more than just an accomplishment. It was proof of something bigger. If I worked hard, followed directions, and focused intensely, things would be okay. They'd turn out the way I'd planned. That afternoon last April, my fantasy was chipping along nicely. My patient wasn't wearing a wedding ring, and nothing about him screamed pervert. He had good shoes and good insurance, which signified a good job. And I started imagining my audition, the first meal for him that I'd cook. I settled on a hearty vegetarian stew, not too spicy. He'd ask 4 seconds, thirds. Then he'd make me a generous offer. Callie and I would move into his house, which would have all the modern conveniences, a sunny kitchen with marble counters, a 6-burner cooktop, and a top-of-the-line mixer for making homemade bread. He'd tell me he wouldn't be around much, but to cook whatever I wanted. Callie and I should make ourselves at home, and of course her friends could use the pool. In reality, the man was talking. He asked if he could spit. After he'd leaned over the bowl, I asked if his teeth felt very sensitive. There was some uneven wear I'd noticed, and I suspected nighttime grinding, which was more common these days. Dr. Rick blamed it on the recession. We started talking about fitting a night guard, and then more generally about relaxing. Meditation. Yoga. Something to relieve his stress.